In other news, the annual March for Life rally occurred this week, but what's it like after the fall of Roe? Also, diversity and inclusion.
Are you retarded?
The hell does it have to do with the House Finance Committee?
It's not a rhetorical question. Are you retarded?
I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is What's Next. Good day, everyone. Jazz Berganzo here. What's next? Hope you guys are doing well today. On this Saturday, yes, of course, this is the weekend edition. A couple of stories that happened this week. And, of course, these are non-Steven Crowder, Daily Wire, World Economic Forum, anything of that nature, or even Dementia himself, which, of course, with his, unclassified documentation, Hunter Biden, what have you. But you had the annual March for Life rally in D.C., which has occurred every year since the most heinous law ever passed under the Constitution, the killing of the innocents. It lasted 49 years to the tune of 63 million deaths. Well, took place. Of course, it was different. Something was different in the air. Yes, Roe v. Wade was no more. We're going to take a look at that. Also, the House Finance Committee, run by the GOP. Now you're thinking, okay, yawn. But what the hell does it have to do with diversity and inclusion? Yeah, we're going to take a look at that one as well. Story number one. This comes out of Breitbart. Watch live, pro-life Americans march for life in the first year after the overturn of Roe. Yes, after the burning of Roe, it takes place because it was something special. D.C., pro-life Americans gathered in the nation's capital to hold the 50th annual, 5-0, annual March for Life protest against abortion. This year marks their first march in a post-Roe v. Wade era. After the overturn of the infamous Death Mills decision last summer. In years past, participants would march to the Supreme Court building to voice their dismay about Roe, calling for its overturn. However, due to last year, March for Life went out and marched to the Capitol building as focus has shifted from legal to now legislative avenues. The rally beforehand will feature speakers such as former Indianapolis coach Tony Dungy, Bishop Michael Burbidge, Reverend Franklin Graham, among others, as well as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and Representative Chris Smith. Quote, even with the wonderful blessing of Roe being overturned, which allows more freedom at the state level to enact pro-life laws, the necessary work to build a culture of life in the United States of America is not finished, the organization said.
Here. I'm Kate Cormack and I am the National President of Voice for Life New Zealand. I also help lead the March for Life New Zealand, so I've come all the way to be here for today's March for Life here because it's obviously the first post-Roe and the 50th, so it's pretty historic and we're part of a global movement, so I'm just excited to be here. It's awesome.
So is there any hope for New Zealand on the pro-life cause?
There's always hope, and I think we've been energized by the defeat of Roe, which is pretty funny actually. But yeah, I think there's always hope, and that's what the reversal of Roe has taught New Zealand in the last year.
So how much do American positions and politics affect New Zealand when it comes to the pro-life cause?
I would say it's more cultural, that your culture affects our culture.
True.
New Zealand really looks to the American culture for leadership, I think, and so it's probably more so that, but of course politics is downstream from culture, so yeah, it's good. Whatever stuff you guys keep doing, forging a way forward for life-affirming laws in Parliament is great, or in Congress I guess you call it. Yeah.
Tell us about the reaction to the Roe v. Wade overturn in New Zealand. What did you see? What did you experience?
Well, all hell broke loose for the pro-abortion lobby, the pro-abortion politicians, the pro-abortion media. It was like a feeding frenzy. They went nuts, which I think was really, really telling.
Of course, they were losing
I
their
wasn't
minds.
actually expecting that big of a reaction. The majority of media, of course, covering it was all completely negative. You know, women are going to die, all the misinformation that you hear.
Yeah, yada, yada, yada.
Um,
Yep.
But it energized the pro-life community. So, yeah, it was awesome. Awesome news in June.
So you would say that the media that you see in New Zealand is very similar to the left-wing bias in the American media.
100%. Yeah, we had the same problem there. And so, but you know, it's the same thing as here. Like, people are catching on to that, and they're not really very happy about mainstream media anymore because they can't rely on it. So they're going to alternative media platforms now in New Zealand. So
Do you think like the distrust of the media within the past 5 to 10 years that's been happening in America
Yeah.
is similarly
Yes.
spontaneously happening in New Zealand?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and because we definitely follow what's happening here. So just even with the Trump stuff, it was just insane the amount of Trump media that we were having in New Zealand. It just has gone completely downhill. I mean, it was already, you know, not great, but it got worse. It's gotten really worse over the last 3 to 5 years, I'd say. Yeah.
And what's the state of the pro-life agenda politically and law-wise when it comes to laws in New Zealand? Where are we at right now?
Well, a week before the first COVID lockdown in March 2020 is when our Labour government passed the Extreme Abortion Law Legislation Act.
And of course, they were
and
going to
so
take
at the
full
moment,
advantage of the COVID. Of course, they were
most
going to
Kiwis
do
don't
something
even
so
know
sinister
that
as
there
this.
was a law change, let alone that we need to repeal it, because it's one of the most extreme laws in the world. So our work is actually really on educating the public now, and then hoping that plays out in the voting this year. It's our election year. So yeah, and thankfully our Prime Minister has just resigned, which is like, woo! Which is huge news for us, because the extreme abortion law was
From the
her
little I
big
know of
project.
her, she was
So,
absolute
yeah, we're really,
trash.
really thankful that she's
She was
actually
talking.
stepped
She was
down.
passing
So
draconian
we'll see
law
what
in New
happens.
Zealand.
Thank you for your time and
Thank you.
have a great march.
Yeah, you too.
Washington Free Beacon, of course. Woke agenda survives. The House Republicans are sticking with diversity and inclusion. Again, what the hell does that have to do with House finance? Democrats may have lost control of the House, but it appears that Republicans are embracing their legacy, so-called diversity and inclusion. Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry, now the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, announced earlier this month that there will be 6 subcommittees. All of them will count advancing diversity and inclusion as one of their top priorities. One of their top priorities, according to the committee's announcement. The subcommittee on capital markets, led by Republican Ann Wagner, for example, will identify best practices and policies to continue to strengthen diversity and inclusion in the capital markets. And a subcommittee on oversight investigations, led by Republican Bill Huizenga, is tasked with making sure that there is agency and programmatic commitment to diversity and inclusion policies. No specific oversight focuses were listed. Diversity and inclusion. 2 members of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Triumvirate, now commonly referred to as DEI, or I like to use Jason Whitlock's DIE, like in die, have become a exception for Democrats and left-wing activists in recent years. Republicans won a narrow majority in the House and during the midterms, at least part due to promises that they would end the Democrats' diversity, inclusion nonsense, and it was a common barb from the Republican National Committee. For example, Democrats prioritize wokeness over solving real problems. That's a fact. McHenry, a close ally of McCarthy, was tapped to chair the influential committee in December. His initial announcement of committee priorities under leadership include conducting a, quote, aggressive oversight of the Biden administration, putting Americans back in control of their finances, and regulating the crypto market. In a statement of the Washington Free Beacon, McHenry said that the committee's Republican leadership would refocus the committees on the kitchen table issues as what matters to American families. Yeah, diversity and inclusion is not a kitchen table subject. Feeding your family, heating your house, fueling your car. Those are the things that matter. And of course, the influx of illegals flooding over to the border like a broken faucet. My thoughts. The pro-life story was a little bit longer only because I wanted to get that woman's entire reason why she's there and how it affects New Zealand and what have you. But I'm sure it was a great day. Hundreds of thousands came out. Now, we don't know the total number. In the past, it's usually averaged about 1 million or 2 that would be coming out every single year. So I'll stand by those prior numbers or trends. But it had to be different. It felt different. It felt a huge weight lifted off of this organization who has been stalwart in fighting and marching every single year since 73. But the work is not done. Now you got to hit state per state per state per state. So the fight's not over. So the war may be over, but the battles continue. Regarding house finance, this is a subject that puts a lot of people to sleep. Now, of course, it's very important, no doubt. But when you fight for, well, we need to get the wokeness out of it. We need to get diversity and inclusion out of it. But yet, as soon as you take over, you got six subcommittees and you have diversity and inclusion involved in it and or a top priority. So which is it? Oh, we need to get the wokeness out, but we're here for diversity and inclusion. Maxine Waters, oh, evil wokeness, but diversity and inclusion. Both can't be right. Wokeness and diversity and inclusion and equity are in bed together. And I mean spooning each other, doing heinous acts with each other would be illegal in all 50 states. But that's just me. I'm Jazz Berganzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more just like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.